get close. Be intimate.
My name is Ryan McKinney. I'm from Toronto.
Your latest record has gotten some excellent reviews and accolades. It's not exactly a new formula that you guys are playing, but it's striking a chord with a lot of people. Why do you think that is? What do you guys have?
I think first off we tour quite a bit, which always helps because you can't really write a good record and then play maybe 2 shows a year and expect kids to give it to them. So I think it's a mix of that, and it's just we're definitely not reinventing the wheel, but we're playing music that we really like the way we want to play it, and sometimes it sounds okay. Once it goes through and people get to hear this, and they realize that we're playing not by the numbers and not by what is popular, and instead we're just doing what we want to do. I think it makes a little bit of a difference.
You're obviously big fans of Dismember as well.
Absolutely.
Have you been following them in recent years?
Not me as much as Brian. Brian is definitely geared more towards the metal scene. I listen to a lot more punk, but luckily, since we live together, I definitely got to find out about a lot more stuff than I usually would have known about. I mean, Dismember I knew, but I wasn't given a tutorial until we lived together. It kind of went back and forth. I introduced him to a lot of stuff. He introduced me to a lot of things that I really like, Brave, things like that I would never have heard on the path of listening to music that I go to. So, the new Dismember is amazing. That is maximum band rotation, I can say.
Solid. Now, metal is of course a more obvious style, a more popular style than punk. So what you exposed him, what he exposed you to, I'm sure would have been maybe easier to find out about. But the punk that you exposed him to, I'm curious about what bands you showed him and that he picked up on.
I think just a lot of the more the lesser familiar bands that are even existing now. Even bands like Tragedy from Ashes Rise. Bands that could fall under the radar unless you hear into the right ears. You know what I mean? And just as to a metalhead, bands like Brave and Dismember and things like that are common knowledge. To a punk kid, a lot of things like Tragedy and everything from the Partisan Crime family, all those type of things are a little less known to someone else, but to us it's like, no, this is it. This is the shit, man. This is where it happens,
Yeah.
So it was just a good. It made it easier on both our record collections because we didn't have to buy as much because we could just switch back and forth at that point.
That's very cool. Talk a bit about your relationship, your experiences with Trash Art.
He's an excellent guy who works extremely hard for his bands. I've had a long relationship with him because I've worked with him in my previous band. So I've known him for probably about 10 years at this point, and he puts everything he has into every release he has, and he doesn't do many releases, but I think that's only because he's extremely selective and only wants to work with people that he appreciates personally and on musical level. He's one person that works out of one room to get everything done. Has never really asked for a break, has never really taken an easy road with his releases or his work ethic. It's always been hands-on, willing to do whatever's needed. He's a great guy. I mean, any band that just starts out would feel lucky to be on that bill and have him behind them. So he does a lot.
Are you happy with how Death Wish have been treating your new record? And
absolutely. They did things for us that we definitely did not see being possible, especially this year. To think that 3 weeks ago, we were in Europe on tour with Rock Sound and Victims, 2 bands that we would not have been attainable more than a year ago. It just wouldn't have happened. You know, I mean, we make efforts as much as we can, but you know, we afforded a lot just by ourselves. You know, we kind of both came from somewhat of a mostly DIY based background, so we weren't able to achieve all the goals we wanted to only because we were sticking to just doing things by ourselves. So to have a label that's pretty much punk based, you know, run by two guys that have spent their lives either on tour or just, you know, roadie or doing any of that stuff, have the label started and, you know, be treated like that, and they treat their artists the way they've wanted to be treated on these labels it's like indescribable, you know. I mean, from the moment we agreed to be on that label, they've done nothing short of making everything that they could possibly do for us. It's been a great relationship.
That's cool. Trap Them really is a darker band than most, both in your tone of guitar, to your lyrics, everything really. What was life like growing up for you?
It was pretty normal small town life. I lived in a smaller town/city in New Hampshire. You know, both my parents were together for most of the time I was at home, you know. I think I just try to take, especially like lyric-wise and the way everything comes across so dark, is because as long as you're kind of aware of your surroundings, you can find faults in anything, you know, unless you're living in, you know, sunny California behind your iron gates, you know, and not really paying attention to what's actually going on. It's kind of hard not to feel there is a darkness no matter where you are. And the only way to really approach that is to sometimes create scenarios and create, you know, different approaches to lyrics than to just say the regular things that most things are based on within a lot of these songs, you know what I mean? Honestly, you know, after you know, bands like Discharge, you can't really just write a simple song about love because it's said perfectly there. So you just have to think of other ways to do it and recreate these things, and that involves sometimes incorporating fiction and non-fiction and creating some sort of different vibe.
Last question I have, on that note, what are the biggest problems in society today according to you, and what are some good strategies for, you know, making things better?
What would I do to make things better?
And, you know, some of the biggest problems in society today according to you.
Well, living in America, I see a lot of problems. So, I mean, to be honest, I think the first thing is the government needs to completely reinvent itself because it's obviously not working, except for the top 5% of the country, where everything seems to be completely fine. I feel that national health care is an absolute must at this point. I could probably go on and on about this, but I personally,
go on.
I think, I mean, for me, I just feel as though every dark area that could be touched is being touched right now in America. I think we're focusing on wars that we don't need to be focusing on. I think we're focusing on you know, subject matters that are being raised in these voting primaries that should have nothing to do with anything. I think you know, the fact that major subjects are still, you know, gay marriage, instead of, how about, you know, there are millions and millions of people dying in this country, being either murdered or starving to death, or can't afford to pay for their kids to go to school, their kids want to actually learn and get an education. I think it's gotten to a point where it's not beyond control, but it's getting to that point. And I would love to say that I have an answer for it, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a 30-year-old that knows everything. But I do know that a lot of things need to happen for that country to get anywhere close to where it should be.